The courtroom echoed with a strange kind of energy, not the solemn hush that usually signaled the beginning or end of a trial, but the smug laughter of men who believed themselves untouchable. Officers Jake Renshaw, Cole Maddox, and Travis Wheeler leaned back in their chairs with the air of seasoned predators who had just tasted another win. Their uniforms, crisp and polished, belied the rot underneath. The gavel struck once. Sharp and final. Case dismissed, the judge announced, not even bothering to mask the fatigue in his voice. From the defense table, applause broke out. Jay clapped Cole on the back. "What did I tell you? Another joke of a trial. Another win in the bag," he said, grinning like a man who thought the world owed him safety. Cole chuckled. "They really thought they could take us down with that weak evidence." Travis added, "We've been through worse. You think a few angry civilians and some media noise will scare us?" The three of them laughed, loud enough to draw glares from the victims' families seated in the back. For nearly a year, Jake, Cole, and Travis had been under investigation for multiple counts of racial profiling, unwarranted use of force, and planting false evidence. But like every time before, the case collapsed before it could reach judgment. Witnesses had mysteriously gone silent. Video footage had somehow been corrupted or lost. Documents disappeared, and now they were walking out free. But just as they stood, preparing to saunter out like kings of the city, the courtroom doors creaked open. The noise alone silenced the room. A man entered, tall, commanding, dressed in a tailored navy blue suit that seemed to absorb the courtroom lights. His skin was the color of polished mahogany, his beard sharply trimmed, and his dark eyes scanned the room with a clarity that made every guilty conscience twitch. There was something about his walk deliberate, smooth, unshaken. The judge cleared his throat, interrupting the silence. "Before we adjourn, I have an announcement to make," he said, his tone now firm and ceremonial. "The city has appointed a new chief of police." Murmurs rippled across the room. Even the reporters who had begun packing their things paused. The judge gestured toward the man. "Please welcome Chief Langston Ward." Jake, Cole, and Travis froze mid-step. Their grins vanished. That name, they remembered it. And as the man approached the front of the courtroom, they were sure of it. Langston Ward was the same man they'd arrested a decade ago. Back then, he was just a young lawyer defending a client they'd railroaded. When he tried to speak up, they found a reason to cuff him too. They mocked him, humiliated him in front of his family, and left him with a bruised body and a bogus charge. And now he was their boss. Langston faced them, eyes steady. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice smooth like steel under silk, "I look forward to working with you." Jake's throat went dry. Cole instinctively stepped back. Travis clenched his jaw. The next morning, they arrived at the precinct in complete silence. No banter, no swagger, just a crushing weight of dread. The atmosphere in the station was different. Their fellow officers, once eager to laugh at their crude jokes and overlook their misdeeds, now stood at attention when Langston walked in. Langston stood before the department, dressed in full uniform. His presence dominated the room not because he raised his voice or pounded a desk, but because of the sheer moral gravity he carried. His badge gleamed under the lights, not as a symbol of power, but as a declaration that things were changing. "Renshaw, Maddox, Wheeler," he called out. All three flinched. He motioned them forward. They walked stiffly, the swagger replaced by cold sweat. "Chief Ward," Cole said with a forced smile. "Great to have you here. We're ready to serve under your leadership." Langston didn't smile. He didn't respond with pleasantries. Instead, he placed a thick file on the table in front of them. Its cover was plain, but as he opened it, their blood ran cold. Inside were pages upon pages of misconduct reports, photos, witness statements, internal memos, proof of everything they had done and thought was buried. Every buried complaint, every dismissed accusation, every rigged report. Travis swallowed hard. "Sir, if you'd let us explain." Langston cut him off. "Save it." He looked up, his gaze sharp. "You've made this department a haven for abuse. You've worn this badge like a weapon instead of a responsibility." Jake fumbled for words. "We were just doing our jobs." "You weren't doing your jobs," Langston said, his tone slicing through the air like a blade. You were feeding off power, fueled by hate, protected by silence. That ends now. He turned to the room. Officers watched, silently, some shocked, others relieved. Effective immediately, Langston declared. You are all suspended, pending a full internal investigation. The room remained still. But the silence was no longer out of fear, it was respect. Jake's mouth opened. Suspended? You can't do that. I just did, Langston replied. This department no longer shields criminals in uniform. And you three? You're done. Their world cracked open. Within days, the city erupted in a buzz. For once, it wasn't because of a scandal, it was because of accountability. Langston didn't just talk. He acted. He rooted out the rot. Officers who had long protected each other were finally brought to the table. Whistleblowers came forward with documents. Footage once believed to be lost was recovered. Forensics matched stories from civilians. The puzzle fit. Jake, Cole, and Travis were arrested under formal charges: obstruction of justice, conspiracy, unlawful arrests, and civil rights violations. They stood once again in the same courtroom, but now in cuffs. Gone were the confident smirks and clean uniforms. Instead, they wore county-issued jumpsuits and expressions that swung between disbelief and terror. The same judge who had once dismissed their case now looked at them with hard eyes. The prosecutor stood and read the charges clearly. Jacob Renshaw, Cole Maddox, Travis Wheeler, you are charged with abuse of power, falsifying records, racial discrimination, and multiple violations of constitutional rights. The courtroom was packed. Reporters filled every row, cameras pointed forward. Activists sat quietly, waiting. How do you plead? Jake licked his lips. Not guilty. Cole shook his head. This is a setup. We have video footage, sworn testimony, forensic evidence, the prosecutor said, unmoved. We don't need a confession. We have the truth. The trial was swift. The jury deliberated for less than an hour. When the foreman stood, his voice was resolute. Guilty, on all counts. The courtroom exploded with applause. For many, it was more than a verdict. It was validation. Years of pain, of injustice, finally recognized. Tears streamed down cheeks. Fists were raised not in anger, but triumph. As the officers were led away, Cole turned toward Langston one last time. You did this, he hissed. Langston stood, calm as ever. No, you did. I just gave the truth a voice. Jake muttered through clenched teeth. We'll appeal. We'll come back. Langston's eyes didn't waver. No, you won't. And as the heavy doors of the courtroom slammed shut behind them, the city exhaled. The age of unchecked corruption had ended. Chief Langston Ward stayed behind in the emptying courtroom, standing in the aisle where he had once been falsely accused, humiliated, and ignored. Now that space had become something different, something sacred. A battlefield reclaimed. Justice had finally taken its seat. And Langston wasn't just cleaning up the past. He was building the future.